Hi, it's Katie Michelle B. Welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be schooling you about a few very problematic misconceptions about decolonization. So coming into the world, coming into law school, I thought, okay, let's go and be lawyers, let's go make money.
Are you mocking us? I know I'm poor. So what exactly are you trying to prove?
Let us go learn about contracts, let us go learn about business, let us go learn about murder and thieves and jail. And then came jurisprudence. So I don't know how it's referred to as in other universities, but at the University of Pretoria, jurisprudence, aka jur, or JUR, is a department actually, one of the departments at the legal faculty, at the law faculty of the University of Pretoria, that talks about the philosophy of law. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but simply it's just about what was the thought behind law as an idea, and then the laws that came about, what was the thought behind all that? Where are those thoughts coming from, and where are those thoughts taking us? Jurisprudence, in my understanding. And through this module and the amazing lectures that we've had, I've come to learn that decolonization isn't about kicking white people out of Africa, sending them back to the Europes and the like. It is about re-identifying the African person. Is it about geography? Is it about politics? Is it about skin color? Is it about melanin? So stay tuned if you want to learn more about this in this video. The first misconception about decolonization that I have come across is that we hate white people. I know that is how it may have been voiced by some of the leaders of African philosophy and the African Revolution, etc., etc. But it is also worth taking note of when these revolutions came about. To my knowledge, this happened in periods when African people were a mixture of people of a particular color. Black, melanated individuals. Then the Caucasian dream, the Caucasian imperialist, colonialist, and oppressive dream was the worst nightmare of an African man. So how do you deal with nightmare? You chase away the demons. And that is how that had been communicated. However, in this particular day and age, decolonization is not about white hate. Decolonization is about self-determination of the African person. African person being an individual that is multifaceted, being an individual with a diverse history, having white blood in their veins, black, indigenous blood in their veins, Indian blood, blood of different races and people of different indigenous histories. Decolonization is mainly about self-determination. Not self-determination as it is spoken about in international law or in relation to borders, but self-determination in what it means to have human rights as an African. What does it mean as it relates to religion, as it relates to education? Decolonization is about the problem of not having representation of African heroes in our textbooks, in our schools, in our education systems. Decolonization is about having African philosophy being taught to us not as something that is customary or lesser than European theories and European philosophies. Our schools, legal schools, business schools, are festered with European thoughts, European ways of thinking, European ways of doing things. And where does that place the African thought? Where does that place the African dream? Where does that place the African individual? I believe in a Pan-Africanist dream where the untapped potential of African people in trade, in art, and industry at large, and self-determination is found. And this goes deeper than the minerals found in the soil of Africa. It goes deeper than the languages we speak. It goes deeper than the borders that we have keeping us away from each other. It goes into how we identify ourselves. And that identification is philosophical, which brings back jurisprudence. A second misconception about decolonization that I've come about is that decolonization equals violence and protests. I am in total acknowledgement, and to some degree I understand why we've taken to the streets to burn oppressive heroes, the roads and the like, to change street names of apartheid heroes to heroes of the African people, such as Steve Biko and the Walter Sisulus and the other ones who aren't celebrated but made an impact in our lives. And this is because the mentality of the oppressed is the greatest weapon of the oppressor. And heroic symbols and history are what our self-awareness is built upon. A great example of this is African Egyptian history. Egyptian history is taught and distributed with the image of a fair Egyptian. But this is not the case, because if we look at the weather in Africa, it is quite impossible to just have been white, to blatantly say. The mixtures with Arabs that the African people had in Egypt came long after the pyramids of Giza had been built, the pharaohs, and all the great Egyptian stories, tales, and history that we find today. But why is it taught with the image of a white man and not a black man? And that's the question you need to ask yourselves. Why is this history of the African person always only related to slavery, oppression, and pain? Why does that particular narrative still continue to be told today? It is not about us hiding our struggle. It is not about us not recognizing and bearing our history of pain, oppression, and subjugation particularly, and hate and limitation. But it is about us showing younger versions of us, Africans, that there is more to us than being the weaker. There is more to us than being the other. There is more to us than being the darker and the evil. I've come to understand that decolonization, as it relates to African culture and African religion, is about demything African cultures, tribes, and rituals as evil. Being a Christian myself, I've come to learn that how the religion has reached the African person tends to be problematic. However, it is one thing to note that, like every other text out there, codified, said, like every other literary work, words of guidance, such as the Bible, it is all open to interpretation. Like the words we speak to each other is open to interpretation. And when that interpretation is misinterpreted, misrepresented, and it is advocated for in oppressive ways, as we've seen with colonial history and the missionaries involved in that, comes a problem where what you think is light and is bright, and what you know alone is the only right way, and what you aren't familiar with is dark and is evil. And we see this throughout the history of colonialism, when they arrive at a place and people don't do things the way they did things in their homes in Europe, these people were seen as uncivilized. When people do not worship and believe how or what you believe and what you aren't used to seeing, you don't participate in trances, you don't participate in particular sacrifices. You label this as dark, you label this as evil, you label this as witchcraft. Undoubtedly, like every other thing, there is the good that is equal to the bad, equally present or equally existent to the bad. It is just problematic that the moment we see African masks or dances, we assume it is evil, and that is problematic on so many levels, because that is our history, those are our ancestors, and they weren't just about killing and murdering and bewitching. There was some good out of it. It might have not necessarily been right according to what you believe, but there was some good out of it. Just like herbs, we see that as something primal, uncivilized, unadvanced, backward. But these are things that grow out of the earth and they heal us. These are things that have been working for ancestors and ancestors, generations and generations before us. So just because something is boxed today, even after it might have come from herbs, doesn't mean that it is particularly better than the ways of our people. That's all I'm trying to say. That is all I'm trying to address in relation to our perception of ourselves. Decolonization is not about hate. Decolonization is actually about love. Loving me enough to allow me to find myself. Loving me enough to allow me to build myself. And not limiting me with rules that were made when I was not there. Limiting me with laws that were made for people who aren't me, people who aren't like me, people who weren't there, people you did not consider people when you were making these rules. It's problematic on so many levels how we think that could work today, how we allow it to work. Understandably, it will cause an upheaval to remake the foundations of the African people, the African context, the African economy, African history. But undoubtedly that history does exist, and it takes us, young Africans, to go and find that history so that we can discover Africa as it unfolds, including all the diversity that has come with that revelation and unfolding of Africa today, including the oppression that came with it, including the slavery, but not that exclusively. It needs to be inclusive of the slavery, inclusive of the pain that we've gone to, but also inclusive of the victories we've had, inclusive of the histories, the rituals, the beliefs we had, the philosophies that founded the African man of those days. If you'd like to see more on such content, let me know in the comment section down below. If you'd like to give it a thumbs up, and see you in my next video. We aim to educate y'all. They won't let, they need it.